What is up, people? You are listening to New Generation Hero Talk. I am your host, EJ Stewart. We got a lot to talk about on today's show. This is a massive show. We've been off for a while, but we have a Superman trailer to talk about, which is super exciting. Superman, the new DCU movie directed by James Gunn, released his first, what they're calling a teaser trailer. So we'll give you guys our thoughts on that, where we think the direction of that movie's going, where the direction of DCU is going. We'll also talk about some other big stuff happening over at Marvel. One being a potential Jean Grey casting coming down the pike. I mean, I did not expect to hear about this news, but this was coming from Jeff Snyder, so we'll give you guys an update on that. Plus, is Sony finally done with the Spider-Man universe? We'll talk about all that and more on New Generation Hero Talk. Again, this is EJ. So happy to be here. Joining me on my co-host, starting with Shamari Stewart. Shamari, I can't wait to talk about the Superman trailer because, especially you being a big Zack Snyder fan with the Man of Steel and the Snyder universe that he created, I'm very fascinated to hear what you're going to say about this new Superman trailer from James Gunn's DCU.
Yeah, man. Of course, happy to be here as always. So we got the first look at Superman. I'm gonna be honest. This was definitely a teaser. Don't know how I feel yet, so I can't say I'm all in on Corin Sweat Superman. I'm done with Cavill, this or that. Like I don't know. I still don't know how I feel about the suit. That's another thing that people, of course, has been a topic of conversation for a long time. Still don't know how I feel about the suit. Particularly particularly the choice to have like the outside underwear, of course, going back to the classic Superman thing. So, and it was a teaser. I mean, the score, of course, going back to the original kind of Superman. I guess John Williams track. Is just classic. So that was nice. I like seeing Crypto. It'll be interesting to see how Crypto is used in the movie. Lois looks good. There seems to be I don't know I don't know how they're gonna do the Clark versus Superman thing. His hair when he was Clark was just like, man, he's just like looks crazy. Like so they're like, I don't know if he like just messes with his hair before he goes into work. I guess that's another thing to kind of make him try to look different. But yeah, so I thought that was interesting. And of course, we got all the Easter eggs of this person in the DCU, that person. We got Guy Gardner, and we got Hawk Girl, and we got Mr. Terrific, and there's a lot happening in this movie. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know. It could be good and done well, but if I had to, and I think we even said this when we heard about all these people being in the movie. If it was up to me, I would have had this be more of just a Superman movie without all these other people in it. But I don't know. I mean, Gunn has whatever his vision is for launching his universe, so this is what he wants to do. So I gotta wait and see. I think the other heroes look, I think they look good. I don't really have any issue with how they look so far. But I just don't know how I feel about them all being in this movie. So that those are my thoughts. I don't know how I feel about the movie yet. I want to see it. I think the score is going to be really good. I'm intrigued by Crypto being in it. I want to see how that affects everything. But I guess that's really all I have to say. And then Superman looks okay, but I'm still unsure about the costume. But yeah, we'll see.
You got Shamari and Kendall. Shamari just coming right out to shoot, man. I mean, usually, you guys set up, he said, oh, it's good to be here. Can't wait to talk about it. And then I go to Kendall, and then Kendall says, oh, yeah, happy to be here. Shamari is like, forget that. Forget Kendall. I'm just going to go off on my takes. I'm just dropping them all, coming right out to shoot. That's how you know there's a lot of buzz for this film. And Kendall, I'm excited to have you on the show as well. Kendall Stewart, of course, joining us. And again, this felt big to me. This felt like it was anticipated. It felt like the buzz online has been there since the trailer came out. This has been a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a movie. I think I told both of you guys, but I know I definitely told you, EJ. This is going coming into this. This is the biggest trailer, most important trailer that we've had in this space um, since Force Awakens. In terms of the Hollywood blockbuster tentpole kind of movie. Um, I think about Force Awakens and what that trailer was, which was, I think, even more of a teaser than maybe this was. But I agree with Schmart. This was also definitely a teaser. This had like a teaser to a teaser, which is kind of weird. But um, the the amount of importance to this trailer was big. Um, and I don't really know if it did anything, didn't do anything good or bad in my opinion. Like it didn't for the people excited for this movie, which I think is a lot of people. I think for the most part, I think it was a positive trailer. Like I don't think it did anything to tell you not to go see a movie, which is what the trailer is supposed to do. For anybody else, maybe skeptical or a pro Snyder guy, a pro Cavill guy, I don't know if this is going to alleviate any concerns you have about this movie. Um, I think that the reasons why we were all excited about a new Superman movie, a new DC universe, a James Gunn led DC universe. A lot of those reasons are in this trailer. I mean, we see a cast that looks really good, and we know that James Gunn, when it comes to casting his characters, has had a very strong track record. I'm interested to see Nicholas Hoult and David Corn Sweat and Brosnahan and the rest of, I guess, what's supposed to be the Justice League. I'm interested to see this cast of characters. So like to me, when you're talking about not only a strong cast, but then the way it looks, I think is very interesting because it doesn't look like a Marvel movie. And to me, that is my biggest question is, you know, like a lot of people, the joke, then, for some people that it looks kind of CW-ish. Uh, I don't know, that might be a stretch. I think the trailer today was better than the teaser yesterday in terms of the visuals. But to me, it almost looks like a movie that was made from scratch. Like, if that, I don't know if that makes any sense because every movie is made from scratch in theory. But you watch, like I rewatched the trailer
Yeah,
to
yeah.
Black
Can you
Adam.
explain? Can you like elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, like I rewatched the trailer to Black Adam, and Black Adam was was a movie that I think seems like it's gonna have kind of a similar story, but like the way Black Adam looks like a movie that was uh, it looked like a Marvel movie. Like it was just really big and grandiose, a lot of action sequences, The Rock. Like it looked like every other tentpole Hollywood film, from this era. Where this movie, like, it doesn't necessarily look like a Marvel movie. Like it looks kind of old timey in some ways. Now maybe it's just the way they did the trailer, but like it's really obviously very a lot of color in it. Um, you know, I don't know what time period this is supposed to be in, but like has kind of an old school retro kind of feel to it. You got the kaiju in the thing, and that looks very kind of retro-y, and then it all looks kind of a weird mix of what they're going for. And I guess if Marvel was producing this movie, I think it would look differently. Which obviously, not like I guess it's not a hot take, but I think it would clearly look differently. Story may be the same, but what they're going for in terms of design and effects and everything feels very new. I don't know if it'll be good. Well, I'll see the movie, but it all feels very new.
I mean, it's very interesting takes from both of you guys. I thought this was a close to home runs they could do for what they were going to do with this trailer. I thought, and this is a teaser trailer that's how they're billing it. There's almost no dialogue, but I think this was more just about setting a tone. And I think all the things Kendall mentioned, where I think is maybe on the fence about, and I think Keshmar too. they're more on the fence about whether or not these are good or bad things. I am not on the fence. I think these are all good things. I think the fact that it does not look like Marvel is as good as we could have asked for. And I think the fact that it doesn't look like Marvel and also doesn't look like Zack Snyder is exactly what DC needed and exactly what they wanted. And that's what you have here. You have a movie that feels very much like its own thing, but also very much a throwback to those old Superman movies from the 70s and 80s. And that's uh, the right sweet spot you want. I think this was a great trailer. Um, Costume, it didn't bother me. Maybe it's growing on me. Like I've been one to say, hey, like I've been defending James Gunn, but like I can't defend this costume. And every time I've seen it in any other rendering, I hate it. For some reason, it just didn't bother me in this trailer. I it was fine. It just did not stick out. Maybe in action, maybe with other, maybe in context with other people and other things, it just didn't. It didn't strike me as offensive as it had in previous times. Um, One, the crypto moment is a moment that I just feel like for a lot of fans is special. I don't know where to rank it. I'm not saying it's Spider-Man showing up in Civil War, but I mean I was talking to somebody. Shout out to Paul Orzuman, one of our employees at WFAN Infinity Sports Network, and he walks by. He sees the trailer, and he's watching it with me. And he said he already watched it 5 times. He said I saw when I saw Crypto come in to help save Superman, I almost had tears. Like this stuff matters to people, and I think we kind of forget how important Superman is to people because of so much of the negativity and toxicity around this character because of the previous movies that he was in. I think there's a lot of people like just begging for this movie to be good, and also begging for this movie to not give you again the Marvel feels because I think people are very down on Marvel. And I think that you got that. I love how Clark looks. I know Shamari was talking about he looked kind of crazy. Yeah, him being disheveled. I love his glasses. Like his glasses are very goofy. Um, to me, like he has to again look nothing like Superman. Like in some ways, he did look like a different person to me, which I thought was practical as well in terms of the whole idea of people not thinking that this person could also be Superman. I also really liked how this teaser. I think it's going to do a good job of playing on the dichotomy of like Superman being a symbol of hope, but also being a person that people have questions about, right? Because you have, I thought one of my favorite moments was the kid when bad things are happening. He seems like in some foreign country. He finds a Superman. He has a Superman cape kind of on like a stick or a pole, and he sticks it on the ground. He's like, Superman, please come, Superman. And it's like that, like speaks to like how much of a beacon of hope Superman is for not just Americans, but just for the world. And I like that, but also juxtaposed with, the guy throwing like what was it, the apple at his head or whatever it was when he's walking into the courthouse. So, and we see Superman have to deal with those things, now and then. And I think where maybe the criticism for Zach was that he really didn't find a way to do the hope side as well. I think he does. He sometimes doesn't get enough credit for that. 'Cause I think the scenes where like all the people on Superman's, their hands all on him, and they tried some things, but maybe he emphasized a little bit too much of Superman being like this very tortured kind of soul. I think this movie is going to find a little bit of a balance in that from what I saw. Now, what I've been fascinated by, I'm curious what you guys think, is some of the like because James Gunn's now been doing interviews. I don't know. I guess these interviews maybe were done before, and then because it
Right.
came out
Yeah, a
almost as
lot
soon
of
as the
press
trailer came
events.
out.
Yeah.
Yes, and the one that stood out to me was about this story. So as Shamari mentioned, you got a lot going on, right? So you got, of course, Lex Luthor being in there. We know he's gonna play a big factor. Nicholas Holt playing him. He looks great. Looks like a very classic Lex to me. But then you got a lot of these other heroes, right? So Mr. Terrific, Guy Gardner, and Hawkgirl. When asked about this story in terms of a villain or how he plans to kind of push this story through, he said he didn't James Gunn being he sees the Superman movie not as a story about a big bad, but about a story of building a universe. And this is interesting to me because in some ways I think people will link that to when we had the last BVS movie that was kind of them making centering it around creating you know Dark Side as the end all be all of this universe. We ended up getting a very weird movie that kind of had multiple visions or whatever, but that was the original vision Zack Snyder had. Whereas with this, it's not going to be about Superman versus a thing. It seems like it's going to be a Superman story, there's also going to be kind of explaining and building the universe that the DCU is going to be pushing forward. And I'll be honest, like I think that that's a totally fine strategy. Like the sometimes I think we've seen superhero movies be so hell bent on trying to make their villains a thing. If those villains don't hit, the movie just bombs. It just doesn't work. And look, Lex Luthor's in the movie. He's going to be a big factor. I have no doubt that Lex Luthor is going to um, be an important role in this movie. But I think the fact that with this movie having so much pressure on it, and with this movie having to legitimately again establish an entire universe, I kind of like the idea that it's not just. I know Shamari they disagree. I like the idea that it's not going to be just a Superman solo kind of story where it's just him and just him versus Azad or him versus a you know Doomsday or whatever it's going to be. I think you kind of need this to be a little bit bigger because DCU's hitting the ground running right now. This is not going to be okay, one Superman movie, and then 3 years later, Superman 2, and then Superman 3, and then we get Justice League or Batman. Like, we're coming in hot. So if they're going to try to play catch up, I think they're going to have to do that in a way that is going to be something like this, where, again, it's maybe not so much big bad focus, but more universe focused. Kenna, what did you think of those comments from James Gunn?
For me, I agree with you. I agree with both of you guys to an extent. I probably lean with Shamari in terms of if I were to have one or the other, I'd maybe lean a solo-ish kind of movie. But I agree in the sense that I don't think, and what a lot of movies have trouble with, is when they try to do both. When they try to do a million different bits of world building inside a movie that's got a villain and a character origin and a character piece, and it's like you can't really juggle both things at the same time and think that that's going to work. Now, again, you can make a solo movie that's by itself and kind of contained, and then kind of build out from that. But I think it's smart that if they really, like you said, they really kind of pushed, the clock is kind of ticking on them a little bit, where there's some pressure to, like you said, world build a little bit. They've got to give us some of those bits and pieces, and so it makes sense to make a movie that's not about just the main villain, like you said, and make it about the world in and of itself and where Superman fits into everything, and kind of gives us a 101 on the DCU, a guide on what the DCU is going to look like. If that's the case, like I don't know, if it's gonna,
Mm-hmm.
if this is what the rest of the DCU is going to look like, or if this is just, because I don't know if, this is not necessarily what Creature Commandos looks like. Or Peacemaker, or I don't know what the DCU is or what it's supposed to be. It's still very jumbled in that sense. But we know Rick Flag Senior is going to be in this movie with Frank Grillo, and so it's in the same universe. How that's going to all play out will be interesting. But to me, I think for just this trailer, again, the movie, I think we'll see. For just this trailer, I don't think I needed to see so much of some of the other stuff that they gave us, like Shamari mentioned. I don't think that, like, Metamorpho, played by the homie from Gotham, uh, Victor Zaz, like they gave him a shot in this trailer that it doesn't necessarily need to be there. We saw Hawkgirl and Green Lantern; those are characters that are more recognizable, so it makes sense to show them. It's terrific. Like, it didn't necessarily need to be in the trailer, but I think he looks cool. To me, like they just showed a million different things at the end that it almost felt like Gunn was trying to just give his actors a chance to be in the trailer. Like, it almost felt like, let's let's throw him a bone. I'm a player's coach. I'll make sure that my guys get in the trailer. Everybody gets a shot, and because I don't know, because they're not people that sell the movie. Like Metamorpho is not a guy necessarily that's selling the movie, so I don't know why he's in the trailer. Other than, again, just showing you what characters are in there. I don't think that it didn't kill the trailer to me, but it was a little, there was a lot going on. But especially the last like 30 seconds of it, it was just rapid fire, shot after shot after shot, showing you different stuff. And, you know, that I thought was
Well, again,
interesting.
remember
They were showing
this
us
is
less
again a
scenes and more shots.
yeah. I mean, remember this is they're billing this as a teaser trailer, so that's the
Right.
to not to defend them, but just to be clear, like that is what they're
Right.
describing this as. Shamari, the quote from Gunn,
Right.
I find it interesting because he said this is not telling one story about this big bad. This is about a connected universe. We're world building. We're not story building. We're not writing one story that has a beginning, middle, and end. It's more like Star Wars than Marvel in that respect. And of course, you being like the resident Star Wars expert on the show, of course, host of Imperial Broadcast with Kendall. What do you feel about that thought process and that explanation from Gunn regarding what we're expecting to see from the Superman movie?
I feel like this is something that we had talked about before
Mm-hmm.
as well, with regards to what approach is he going to take. Is he going to build this like the MCU, where it's just um, one long story, or or is it going to be more like Star Wars, where it's
Mm-hmm.
like a universe and you just play in it, kind of thing? Um, and everything, um, everything is like within the universe, but there are various different, through different mediums, you tell different stories and so on. Where it seems like he's going the Lucasfilm route, and as he said, he wants to take that approach and just kind of build this world, DCU world, whatever he wants that to look like, and then just tell stories within that world. And um, I think that's a good approach. I mean, I like that approach from Lucasfilm. I like that they do that in the or that they uh, definitely try their best to do that in the current with the current Lucasfilm leadership. Anyone that listens to Imperial knows I have my complaints with Lucasfilm, but in terms of
Yeah.
their world building efforts, they really do try in that. They try to world build. They try to expand. Create different have things at different time periods and different ways to expand and create more content and to have it all fit together in one storyline. And I think Gunn trying to or wanting to have a model like that is a good thing. I think that's something that's going to benefit the DCU. Um, and Yeah, no, I definitely think that that's something that is a benefit. I think that's something that the fan base is going to enjoy, and I think it'll make things um, less confusing for fans as well. So they all know that everything DC that's being made going forward fits in the universe.
I kind of wonder when I watch this trailer. I mean, and I call it a trailer, teaser, whatever. But to me, like the movie's called Superman, and we'll watch the movie. I mean, maybe it's really a Superman movie. But I almost wonder if maybe it would have been better, like not calling it like Superman, like kind of just going off like being. And now, from a marketing standpoint, maybe that would have been silly. But I just think about like some of the movie, like some of the stories, like for example, like DC Rebirth, like that being like a comic book. Like it's not called Superman or whatever. It's just Rebirth, right? Like, and it kind of is like a Wally West story, but like it touches on a lot of different things. Like I kind of wonder if like the I think this is gonna end up being a Superman movie, but I do kind of wonder with the way James Gunn is talking, if it would have been helpful to maybe kind of expand it away from just a Superman branding. So for the folks like you guys who are like confused as to why we saw so much of Guy Gardner, and to be fair, these were only shots. It wasn't like they were throughout the whole time, but Guy Gardner and all these other characters. I wonder if just the fact that it's only called Superman maybe makes that confusing. But again, we've watched so many Superman movies besides the BVS is a Batman Superman movie, so that it invites more crossover. But I mean, Man of Steel is as much as we talk about Zack Snyder being so much about trying to build the DCEU at that time, Man of Steel is very contained. Those other Superman movies are very contained. So again, when you're talking about the Kevin Feige model, was like, all right, well, how do I do a Superman movie different than what's been done? Well, we've never really see Superman play in a play box that isn't beyond just the Metropolis, Krypton, playpen that we
Smallville.
already usually fit
Yeah.
him in. Smallville, yeah, playpen that they always fit him in. Like this is gonna expand beyond that. So I dig that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I think that there. I mean, I hope there's a lot of world building in this movie. I mean, to me, like we talked about how it looks original. When they first, came with the DC Studios moniker and this whole idea of resetting the world, I kind of hoped that it would look very much like Marvel. Like maybe not modern Marvel, but like original
I'll be honest though, Kendall,
MCU
you say that,
Marvel.
but like Marvel, I do not want it to look like Marvel just because I'm so glad this movie is not shot on so much damn green screen. Like that
Oh,
sticks out.
right,
That stuck
right.
out to me. That so many of these scenes are actually not shot in the Atlanta sweatshop. I mean, that was very welcoming to me. But I get what you're saying.
Right. But like I was hoping, I'm hoping for a vibe where this is just like Iron Man 1 or, you know, Thor 1, Cap first Avenger, but for DC. And that, that they would start with him and they would do Batman and Wonder Woman and Flash and blah, blah, blah. And it seems like right now they're kind of all over the place still. I mean, I don't know what's coming out yet. They gave us a slate. We know we got Lanterns as a show on HBO. We got Clayface. Is Clayface DCU or is that Matt Reeves? I have no idea. I don't know if they know
Apparently, it
yet.
is. Yeah,
But
yeah. Apparently, it's
um,
DCU. That's what they're saying.
that's what they're saying. But like now, people are saying maybe maybe this is the first indication. There's reports, rumors that maybe Reeves, maybe the Bat verse, the Pattinson verse is in the DCU now. Like I don't know, but regardless, it's like you know. Hopefully this movie's organized and hopefully we can continue to move forward positively, but this is a massively important movie. I mean, if this movie is good, it just has to be good. Like Rotten Tomatoes, it's got to be, if it can reach 75, 80%, they'll be fine. If it's anything lower than that, I'll be like, ooh, I don't know. There's a lot of pressure on it on this universe going forward. But if he can if he could hit 80%, they'd be really fine. I think going forward.
yeah. I feel like before this trailer, I didn't really know how important. Like I knew this movie was important, but I feel like after seeing this trailer, I think this movie is going to be very, very important for, especially how they're branding this James Gunn's, Superman, and it's like this is very important. This movie does poorly with like specifically with audiences. I won't even say critics because I mean I feel like audiences and critics that we've gotten 3 Venom movies because the audience said screw the critics. I don't care. So
True.
if it does well with audiences, I think his universe is kind of. I feel like it kind of gives him a mandate essentially to
Right.
just be like, what do you want to do with this universe? It tells DC and Warner Brothers, obviously Warner Brothers, leadership and all of them. Like this guy knows what he's doing.
So
He knows Superman is one of their tentpole, brands, and he is winning with this brand. It's like you get it at this point. He's not only in charge, but he's also creatively someone that they should follow.
so
And
so what you're
yeah, I think
saying
it's
is
I think it's vital that this movie does
so,
well.
so what you're saying is if the Rotten Tomatoes audience score is over 51%, then James Gunn's able to pick anybody he wants to cast in any movie he wants. And he got a full mandate to do everything and anything he wants to do with the DC universe going forward. So we can't question it.
Yeah, I mean, if it gets up to a certain, um, if it does well, I think if it does, like I agree with what you were saying. If it's in the 80s, I think if it's in the 80s plus, that's pretty definitive. Like people really like what he's doing, especially with a character as important as Superman. At that point, you just let him build his universe.
Right now, you're talking about a July 11th release date for Superman, um, which is right around Comic Con season as well. This, I mean, we'll talk about Marvel in a second. This is probably going to be the biggest superhero summer, I'd argue, since Endgame. Just as a whole, I know in Endgame, DC wasn't giving much resistance at that time, but considering you got what's it going to be?
Fantastic Four.
Marvel's Fantastic Four, and this coming out same summer. Then Comic
Yeah, within a
Con,
couple weeks of each
Avengers,
other.
they're
Yeah.
gonna be gearing up for Avengers on that side. DC Superman, we would have seen Superman, so we kind of see how that world's shaping up. They're gonna have Heat as well. This is gonna be a crazy summer for superhero stuff, and I'm excited. Feels like we've been I meant it's funny. I feel like when we talked about this I remember doing the show, sitting here during the pandemic, feeling like because we just weren't getting any movies, I was like, man, this feels like we're in the dark ages right now when it comes to superhero movies. And to be honest, I don't feel like we've left. Like superhero movies have quote unquote come back since then, but it doesn't feel like with the exception of some bright spots, the Batman, Black Panther 2, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, like except for some bright spots there, here and there, it doesn't feel like we've really have felt that feeling back fully. Even those movies maybe didn't give the full feeling back. I wonder if this is the summer when we finally get that. And maybe Deadpool and Wolverine was kind of like the beginning of this kind of comeback. But again, I remember sitting here saying we were in the darker ages, and it feels like we still are. I wonder if this is the beginning of us getting out of that. But there was some massive news we saw today. Shout out to Jeff Snyder. And it's a report regarding a potential casting for one Jean Grey. That's right. We're talking X-Men, people. What was that? I said we're talking X-Men. Yes. So Jeff Snyder reporting that Sadie Sink from Stranger Things is the current frontrunner to land the role of Jean Grey in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, adding that her debut in the role could come as early as Avengers Doomsday. Uh, so she could be in Doomsday. She could also be in Secret Wars, with the hopes that she would then be Jean Grey in an X-Men movie. And he is saying that Marvel Studios is eyeing a late 2027 release date for this film, placing it somewhere around November 2027 for X-Men. This is obviously all massive, potentially massive news. None of this has been like reported by any trades. Like we haven't heard anything about X-Men release date, anything about X-Men casting. Damn sure nothing about an X-Men casting that's gonna happen in a movie that's not after Secret Wars. Like these are all new things. These are not things that we have seen. Sham. Uh, what do you make of this stuff from Jeff Snyder here regarding Sadie Sink as a casting? I never watched Stranger Things, so I'm not as familiar with her work. I know she's very young, 22 years old, so that maybe suggests some thing of like what they're trying to do with this movie. But what do you think of that?
Yeah, man. I think. First of all, EJ, you gotta jump on Stranger Things, man. You gotta get on
I know, I'm behind. I'm behind.
that. But nah, like in terms of Sadie Sink, she was very good in Stranger Things. So definitely, I think like a talent. Probably someone that they saw in the show and was like, she's really good. Because I'm sure all these Hollywood people are always looking for talent. I'm sure, so that's probably someone that they saw and tapped as someone that is worth bringing on. Someone that would be worth bringing on. Maybe they could see what role she would fit in. The character she played in Stranger Things actually reminded me a lot more of like a Rogue type of, or at least Rogue from the original from the X-Men movies in like the 2000s.
Yeah.
So, but she is like a redhead, which I guess would lead you to like the Jean Grey. To think that the Jean Grey character would work well, but yeah, I think it's a good casting. The thing that stands out to me is how young she is,
Hmm.
because she was playing a teen.
Yeah.
in the show. As you said, 22, young, looks young, doesn't look, like someone who could pull off like some older role. So that tells me they're going for like a very young X-Men, which I feel like we kind of just saw with like the Sophie Turner and all that. So I guess we're going back to that. Which I don't have an issue with. But I do think that this is, in terms of the casting itself, I think this is a good casting. I'd be interested. I would think, based on the casting, that we're probably going for more of like I guess the Sophie Turner kind of, because Jean Grey does kind of have a sad, I guess you could say, backstory, kind of tortured kind of thing going on, and I would think
Right, like we're leaning back
Sadie
into
Sink could
that.
definitely pull that off. But I would think that we're going to get more of that, based on what I saw from Stranger Things and how well she was able to
Kevin
pull off that
Feige's,
character, because
like,
she
we
had
gotta
a
play the
little bit
hits.
of that going on in that show as well.
That's interesting because I, for one, like if you're doing Jean Grey, the Phoenix you can't. It's so entrenched with her character. There's so much canon now about it. The Phoenix being something beyond just a short little saga that happened in the Chris Claremont comics in the '80s. It goes well before that in terms of like it being a part of her. Well beyond that, obviously the comic books ever since. So that's the thing. I will say I'm not running to another tortured Jean Grey story for a long time. If it was me, you're gonna have to do the Phoenix thing. It's got to be a part of her story. But I would hope that that's not something they do immediately. I'm hoping that they could let Jean be Jean, maybe see a young love story with Cyclops, something that we really never quite got because of how the X-Men did the first trilogy where they were already older and already together, and then the second trilogy where they were trying to do a young love story, but then like threw the Phoenix Force very fast, so we kind of never got that. I'll say one thing: Sadie Sink looks like Jean Grey to me. I mean, to me, it's like if I was casting a 20-something-year-old Jean Grey, it would look like this woman. so, so I'm like, for that standpoint, I think they definitely nailed it from that. Kendall, what do you think about this? I mean, again, a lot going on here. So, the fact that they have someone potentially that's in the lead to get this role, and B, that she may be coming way earlier than maybe we expected, and maybe before Secret Wars, maybe as early as Avengers Doomsday.
Yeah, I mean that aspect of it is very much a surprise. I even think it's interesting. Jean Grey is the first person that we're getting word. Doesn't necessarily mean that she's the first person that they plan on casting. They could be casting. They could have ideas for Professor X. Could have ideas for a bunch of people. And we're just hearing about this, but like, I would have thought, like, if you would have asked me, who are your priorities for casting in terms of Marvel's X-Men? I would have said my first priority is Cyclops, and my second priority is Professor X. And then, I mean, I don't know if you're doing Wolverine, but if you're doing Wolverine, he's priority number 3. And I could have named you maybe 3 or 4 more people I would have said before Jean Grey. I probably would have said Storm before Jean Grey. I probably would have said, Magneto if you're doing Magneto. And so the fact that we are getting Jean Grey already casted is a little concerning. Not necessarily because I hate the Jean Grey character, but just, the Fox movies maybe hate the Jean Grey character. There's that, again, no shade, but we just got so much of her, in the Dark Phoenix stuff like you guys talked about. And both the Dark Phoenix movies were terrible. Does not necessarily mean that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to get the Dark Phoenix because they've casted her early or anything like that, if this is real. But, so that I think is one interesting side of this. But the biggest takeaway to me is like what Shamari mentioned. I think it's just the age. I mean, I did not expect this. I don't know if I would have done this. Now, look, you guys know me. Quite possibly my favorite piece of superhero media is X-Men Evolution. Maybe, besides maybe some of these MCU movies, X-Men Evolution. And so X-Men Evolution is a cartoon about most of the prime X-Men characters that we know in high school, outside of Storm and Wolverine and Professor X. So, like, I have no problem with them casting a young group of X-Men. I think that that's a great idea. I liked X-Men Apocalypse maybe better than most, particularly when they focused on the young X-Men. But I don't know if I would have done this for where Marvel is at in their portfolio. Yes, they do need young heroes, but they also need like actual heroes, And so if you're telling me that you're casting Jean Grey as 22 years old, the actress 22. I mean, she's probably playing somebody who's like late high school, early college at the oldest, I would think. Like, you're telling me that means Cyclops is probably in the same age range, and I think that you're taking away someone who had a possibility of being one of your flagship face of the franchise kind of heroes into being, someone who I thought would have been maybe your replacement for a Steve Rogers Captain America is now sort of your replacement for Tom Holland. And that's fine.
But Tom Holland's huge, though. I mean, Tom Holland's not some bench warmer. Tom Holland is
no. Tom Holland's great. No, Tom Holland's great, but that's not. But Tom Holland's been around.
I think,
and that Marvel struggle.
Are you trying to? Yeah, are you trying to say because I agree with EJ that if she was replacing Tom Holland, that would be best case. That would be great. That would be like best case scenario.
Right.
But like she could also, if you're making a young X-Men and people either don't like them or aren't really attaching to them, you can kind of slide into New Mutants territory where you're just like, oh, okay, these are just these kids out here that I don't. This is not. This is not. I guess my thing is that.
Right. I mean, I think my thing is that like I don't know if like a 20-year-old Cyclops can be your face of the franchise. I don't know if he can be the face of the MCU.
But I'll be honest, though. I mean, I don't think Cyclops would be the face of Marvel. Like, I think you're over.
I think he could. I love
Cyclops. I love Cyclops. I think.
So you mean to tell me if Glenn Powell? You mean to tell me if Glenn Powell was playing Scott Summers that he couldn't be one of the top 3 or 4 faces of the MCU?
Well, no, that's different. Top 3 or 4 is different. I'm saying the
right.
face.
That's what I'm saying. One of the faces of the franchise. I'm saying just like the last 3. The last cycle it was Downey. It was Evans. It was Hemsworth.
But right now, but Cyclops is part of a team, Kendall. I think that's I don't agree. I feel like Cyclops. When I think X-Men, I think.
So you mean to tell me Glenn Powell was playing Cyclops that he couldn't be an A-list hero?
No, I'm not saying he's not A-list. Again, you keep using different words. I'm not saying he can't be A-list. I'm saying you're talking about being one of the faces of Marvel, and I'm saying
next
Cyclops
to Tom
is
Holland.
Not Spider. But Cyclops is not Spider-Man, Kendall. Cyclops is not Wolverine.
I think that's debatable, man. Well, Cyclops is Wolverine because of Hugh Jackman.
Come on, bro.
No, I'm not saying he's not. I'm not saying he's Spider-Man. I'm saying if you do him a certain way, he can be. That's what you got to have a vision. It's like you play Marvel. You could play Marvel versus Capcom from back in the day, and Cyclops is one of the faces of the Marvel brand. Ahead of some of these characters that we were talking about, ahead of Captain America, it's Cyclops. I don't know why. Marvel would have a vision of having a kid Cyclops. Again, I don't have a problem with it. Like, generally speaking, I'm a fan of X-Men Evolution. I love the Scott Summers in that show, but I don't know how we could watch X-Men 97 and feel like we don't want to see a prime, Captain America 2.0, Soldier Boy, Boy Scout, Cyclops. Now, again, he can grow into that. We can have a Holland, a Harry Potter situation, but all that telling me is that this kid's going to hate playing Cyclops 10 years from now. By the time he's in his prime, he's going to be, I'm done playing this character. I'm 30 years old. I've been in 8 movies now. Move me on. Imagine Henry Cavill. I'm saying, Glenn Powell. Imagine Henry Cavill playing Cyclops. That's an A-list actor playing potentially an A-list character.
I get that, but Kendall, one thing, Sadie is not 16; she's 22.
She's 22 years old.
It's not guaranteed that. Right, but it's not guaranteed that she's playing a teenager. She could be playing a 22-year-old. Like they could be.
That's very rare.
People in their 20s.
We know that's very rare.
He also could be.
But even if she's playing 22, that's still too young. That's Tom Holland. Tom Holland's 27. Yeah.
Right, but I'm saying, like, Tom Holland is a star. You keep saying Tom Holland like it's a bad thing. Tom Holland's one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. He's one of the biggest stars Marvel has. Maybe he may be the biggest star. I guess that's what doesn't compete to me. My thing is, like, why can't the X-Men, being a team of young adults going on these crazy adventures that are also these hope for these mutants, but also, like, vilified as well? Like, why can't that be something that attracts people? Because they're in there, like I see. I think Marvel. I get it.
Marvel needs star power.
I don't see that as a thing.
Marvel needs star power right now. You know, and so when they don't have star power, I agree that in general, from a story perspective, like I said, I love X-Men Evolution. I love X-Men Apocalypse, how they introduce. I love Ty Sheridan. I like Sophie Turner. So Ty Sheridan is my favorite Cyclops. There's only 2 of them, or 3 of them, I guess, if you count X-Men Origin. But Ty Sheridan is my favorite Cyclops. I would love them to just bring him back, honestly. We know it's not going to happen. But, so I'm perfectly fine with an idea of a young X-Men. And from a story perspective, that could be great. I'm just looking at Marvel's portfolio and saying, again, we're missing all these heroes. Doesn't mean we won't get them back. We could, in theory, get them back, but we're missing all these heroes. To start with such a young X-Men, story-wise, it's fine, and I'm a fan, so I'll support the stories if they're great. But I would just, from a business standpoint, be like, man, like,
how old do you think James Marsden? How old do you think James Marsden does when X-Men 1? How old do you think he was?
The youngest, I would say, 28.
He's 27.
He's 27.
I mean, that's not. It's not. I mean, I don't. That's what I'm saying. Like they started with James Marsden. He was 27. He played a young adult. It was fine.
So I like James Marsden.
It was fine.
I like James Marsden, but again, wasn't a star.
It wasn't like he was 35 years old.
He wasn't a star. He was a B+ player.
And nothing to know. he was probably cast when he was like 24, 25.
That's what I'm saying. He was cast 2 years before. Sure.
I mean,
so that's what.
That's fair.
I don't like. So that's an example of someone who played someone that was not a high schooler.
I'm not. I know none of us are we're not movie scouts, so we don't have a Rolodex of actors out there. But can you name me the 25 and under actor that can play Scott Summers right now and be A-list? It would be a huge deal.
I don't think they need that.
That's where we differ. I think they absolutely
I see what you're saying. I wonder what Shamari feels. I personally don't feel like they need that. I feel like Marvel has not had an issue that the problem is they don't have movie stars.
I think that's absolutely.
To me,
why would they pay Robert Downey Jr. $100 million to come back to play Dr. Doom? It doesn't make any sense. Besides, they need a draw.
The issue isn't, that's more complicated because there's a draw to Robert Downey being in a Marvel movie. They just hired Pedro Pascal to do.
Right, he's a household name.
Right, I'm saying so. It's not like they're just totally against hiring stars.
I'm saying they know they need.
But Thor Love and Thunder didn't fail because of a lack of superstars. Okay, like Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness didn't have the issues it had because of a lack of stars. These movies that have struggled didn't have an issue because they didn't have stars in them. They struggled because the stories weren't good or the stories were flawed.
I don't know.
They weren't connecting with people. They're using the Robert Downey thing. And by the way, we don't like that. I don't think there's anyone in the show that co-signed Robert Downey Jr. being signed as Downey.
No, I hated it.
So I hate it.
Yeah, but there's a million other A-listers you could have cast. There's a million other A-listers.
But to use that as a thing to say, well, that was something good. It's like, well, no, we're looking at that saying that was.
No, I'm not saying that's something good. I'm saying, my point is just that they are clearly, you're saying they don't have a lack of star power. They don't have a need for star power. And they literally went out of their way to get the biggest star they could possibly do to play a character that he shouldn't be playing. They know it doesn't make sense, but they need the star power. So my thing is, this is an easy way to say, look, we have a character that, you're right, it's not an A+ player in the comic. Maybe he's not even an A, probably an A- at his peak. But if we cast a big enough actor could definitely be an A because the movies prior he was a B guy. He was a B character for no reason. And look, let me also be frank. Like we don't know their X-Men. We don't even know if Cyclops is in it. I assume he's in it, but like there's a strong chance that Wolverine could be played by a Henry Cavill or some A-lister, and that Professor X will most certainly be played by somebody that we know and recognize.
That's what I'm trying to say. Exactly.
So it's not like that you can't sell the movie like that. But my bigger problem then just goes back to like Cyclops should be a central figure in this thing,
but he can still be.
but like
that's what I'm trying to say.
I don't think I want to see a coming of age Cyclops, and I love X-Men Evolution, but like I think that we should be getting X-Men '97 Prime Cyclops in this movie. That's just my opinion. I think that we've said this going into this thing. Like this is their opportunity to give us Cyclops, and he's not a chump. He's not a wimp like the Fox movie. He's not a background character. This is gonna be a good version of Cyclops. It doesn't mean he can't be good. Because again, I like Ty Sheridan's Cyclops also, but he just can't be again one of the faces of the franchise. He can't be the guy that you put next to again Spider-Man and some of the other guys and say, look, our guy for the X-Men is Cyclops. It's gonna be Wolverine again. It's gonna be Professor X, or it's gonna be some kid that nobody knows and has to be great. Like he just has to be great because he's not getting it off of his name. Like again, Glenn Powell, it's automatic. If you cast Glenn Powell, I don't know what his price range is, but if you cast Glenn Powell, you're already signaling Cyclops is gonna be a big deal in the MCU. If you cast Henry Cavill or John Krasinski, you're saying Cyclops.
Well, what if
is a
it's
big
Timothy
deal
Chalamet? What if it's Timothy Chalamet? Is that
that would be a massive deal. That would be a massive deal.
I feel again. I just feel
it's
like
not going to be him. Though. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like, it's probably not going to be Timothy Chalamet. That's the one guy though. Like, if it's Austin Butler, who is probably too old to play Cyclops, if this girl's 22 and he's like 30. But like, if it's Austin Butler, that's massive. That's a massive deal, and I'll say I'm wrong. But again, if they're casting somebody that's 24 or 25 or under, again, find me the actor, find me the name. I'm going to be like, yeah, this guy that's A-list. That's who they should go after. That's star power. Whoever you're casting is going to be somebody that has to grow into that. And that to me is like, it's going to be fun to watch.
I want to hear your thoughts from.
So kind of, I don't know that we need a Cyclops that's got like some kind of superstar. I think that's a bit.
I don't think cash space. They may not have the money.
Now, mind you, I'm biased. I'm not a Cyclops guy, and I know there's a lot of Cyclops people out there that don't abide by any Scott Summers slander. I'm not a Cyclops guy. I was never a Cyclops guy. I was never like, oh, I need Cyclops to be so cool. Like, I mean, Cyclops, he's all right. He's like you said, a Boy Scout, Go X-Men team. Is like, all right, yeah, that's fine. And he has this thing with Jean Grey, and that never turns out well. And we all know because we all know the story. It doesn't turn out well,
right?
Except I'm sure there's some X-Men storylines where it does, but by and large, if you watch anything on TV or the movies, it doesn't go well. So, that's what I'm used to seeing from Scott Summers. So I don't need to see some. In my opinion, very overpaid, A-list actor play Scott Summers
to see that go out. Cyclops.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
We don't need a Juan Soto contract to get someone to play Scott Summers.
We'll watch him get disintegrated by the Dark Phoenix again, or whatever happens. I don't need to see that. So I'm not a Scott Summers guy. I'm not a Cyclops Scott Summers, so I don't know if I need some triple A-lister to be playing that character. It'd be different, Kendall, if you were talking about Wolverine. If we're talking about Wolverine needs to be either someone we know or someone that plays the character so well. That some diamond in the rough that we've just never seen. Which they're out there, there's people I've seen on TV and other places where I'm like, man, this guy's amazing. And then next thing you know, they're a big name in a year. So you never know. They could find someone.
I Googled the Google algorithm. I Googled top actors under 30, and they're all people within the. It's funny because they're not all under 30, but they're all people in the age range of like 32 to 27, as is like the youngest of like people that you recognize. There's nobody that's like that young And the few people that were that young, it was like, yeah, I was like, I've never seen this kid before. Like, who is this guy? You know, and that to me is, it's not necessarily inherently a problem, right? Like, Marvel's done a good job casting actors and turning them into stars. Nobody knew who Tom Holland was before he played Spider-Man. So it doesn't mean you can't make this person into a star.
They've also taken like C-list people and turned them
right,
into megastars
that are talented, like
an Elizabeth Olsen. So you can
like
get somebody that's like a Barry Corgan, and he could turn into something.
Right.
I know he's playing Joker, obviously, but he could turn into something that's crazy.
Right,
playing
and so
a character like Saw Summers.
Right, so you can find people like that. And this would be great if Marvel was at its peak, you know, and maybe they'll be at their peak. If we're talking about these characters going to be in Doomsday and all that, maybe Marvel will be back by then. But, like, to me, I'm just like, man, like, Marvel is struggling. You look at their roster, like, we got no Black Panther, we got a Captain America, but it sounds like that movie's not going to be good.
Yeah.
We got bring back Steve Rogers. What is he coming back for? It's because they need star power.
No.
But, like...
you keep saying, like, I think they need the character. I don't think they need Chris Evans. I think that's where maybe we're not seeing it. Because my thing is, like, yeah, they feel like the problem was we were attached to Steve Rogers and Tony Stark, and those people are gone, and they haven't been able to get the feeling back since they lost them. So we need those characters
what I love
back,
about this,
those actors back to get the feeling back.
What I do love about this,
like, we can't do a Marvel movie without Chris Evans. I don't. They just did a Marvel movie where they didn't build Chris Evans at all
Stark's
in the movie.
Robert Downey was playing Tony Stark. That's the only thing that blows up that argument. They literally cast this guy to play a different character.
I guarantee you, Tony Stark, Iron Man, will be in one of the or
be in Doomsday movies. They literally told us the rumor with Cap. They're saying he's playing Nomad. He's not even playing Captain America. Like, we don't care if he's Captain America now. We just need Steve Rogers, Chris Evans back, in this movie to sell it. Now, what I do love about it is, like you mentioned, Chris Evans. Chris Evans is like only 40 something. Like, he's like 45, and he's been playing this character for like 15 years. So it goes back to the longevity. If you cast somebody young, they can play this character forever. And Hugh Jackman,
which is why this is
30?
Awesome to me.
It was 30 something when he was young, early 30s, late 20s when he's cast. And he's still 30 years later playing this character. So that is absolutely a massive positive to this aspect, is that, we can grow into this character. I see the Tom Holland thing, and I'm like, every time this kid talks, he sounds like he hates playing Spider-Man. So I'm like, after 5 years, is this person going to be burnt out? That's just the question that I have. Now, again, it's Cyclops. Like you said, it's not Superman. It's not Spider-Man. And this is just one character we're talking about. It's not just Cyclops.
Yeah, and it's not them trying to carry a whole. It's not them trying to carry a whole franchise on their back. Like we've asked, you're talking about Tom Holland, or you're talking about Robert Pattinson. Like those guys are asked to carry a whole thing on their back. Like that's not. That's just not Cyclops. Like I think again, that's the difference for us, is that like I just think you're asking Cyclops to do something that he's not. You're asking him to be, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Wolverine. Like he's just not that.
Well, it's just now, like he could be the representation of that for the X-Men, as opposed to Hugh Jackman. Like Hugh Jackman has been that, because Wolverine wasn't that,
right?
But he turned into that because Hugh Jackman became the face of the X-Men, and so
Wolverine was the most popular X-Men before Hugh Jackman, though. To be fair, that's
right.
Not...
Yeah, but he wasn't. He wasn't the guy. He's become the guy now at Marvel. It's him and Spider-Man. And like he became the guy because of those movies. And if Cyclops was your face of the face of your movies, and your movies were great, and he was a big actor, it would be super easy to sell that guy as one of the big three at Marvel. Now it could be Professor X, but the guy's in a wheelchair. No disrespect, but I don't know if that is going to be a guy that's going to be able to sell tickets. As a character.
I mean, last time they did
James McAvoy was great.
I'm about to say the first time they did an X-Men movie, the most famous people in it were Magneto, Professor X, and Magneto. That did really well.
That's the other part of it. I would love.
I mean, Halle Berry in theory maybe was. Yeah, Halle Berry in theory maybe was as famous as Patrick Stewart and Ian McClellan,
Right.
but we know why she was there.
Mm-hmm.
Black actresses and representation, all that stuff. But besides her, though, they when Fox did it, they secured the two biggest, like kind of like most established actors to be the actors that were playing the ten poles, which were Professor X and Magneto.
Them being in
I don't think there's
Doomsday.
any.
Oh, I'll let you.
I was like, I don't think there's anything wrong with going forward with that still being your strategy. And let me just say one thing before I do want to talk about the Doomsday aspect of this real quick. I feel like there's actually a lot of potential in doing them a little younger in terms of young. Again, I don't know if I need to see them in high school. That might be a little stretch too far for me. I'm gonna watch it regardless. I think there's a benefit to them doing younger because you can have these characters really grow into their roles. Like, I think one thing we've heard about Kevin Feige talking about it is he wants the soap opera aspect to be pivotal in the X-Men story, which is very important. I think he's right about that. I think when you add young adults, Gen Zers kind of in the mix, I think you're able to kind of make that feel more believable and not like people just being ridiculous, because there are a lot the X-Men get very messy, as we know. And I also feel like, just my counterpoint to a lot of what Kevin said is I just don't they, I don't think you have to do really anything to sell the X-Men. I think one thing that like people need to remember is prior to the Avengers being a thing in the movies, the X-Men were 10 times more popular than the Avengers. Like, a lot of people didn't know the Avengers existed. Let's be being real in terms of like non-superhero fans. They didn't know that Captain America and Iron Man were on team. Like, the X-Men have so much name recognition and they're so popular that I personally push back on the notion that if you're doing an X-Men movie, that Cyclops needs to be super famous, because to me the X-Men themselves, they're like the Yankees. They're like the Notre Dame football of Marvel, like, or superheroes, or maybe even a medium. They're massively popular, which is why the only reason why we have this world that we have is because they started with X-Men being the first superhero movie of this new millennium that kind of created all this and made this even possible. They were able to do that because X-Men was so damn popular. That's why they went with this for the Marvel side. DC is Batman and Superman. For Marvel, I'd argue it's Spider-Man and X-Men. That's what it is. So I think we're putting too much weight in one casting for Cyclops. My thing is you could put anybody behind the visor, and if they know what the hell they're doing, and you have someone who's writing the story well, that person can still end up being a huge star. James Martin didn't make up the star he should have been, not because of like uh him not being a star when he got there. It's because they wrote him as a chump. If they make Cyclops way more complicated and way more deeper than what we've seen from those Fox movies, then you could absolutely make him a star. I mean, the Cyclops that we see running around the Marvel comic book universe for the last, I'd say, 10, 15 years has been way more interesting, maybe even 20, way more interesting than the character that preceded that. So I think there's still a lot of potential there. And again, I'm excited to see what Sadie Sink, if she is the person that they're going with, how she becomes the kind of the rest, how she kind of becomes maybe the tempo if she's the first cast for the rest of the team, because Jean Grey is Charles Xavier's first student. So I think that that's something that's important as well when we talk about like the order of casting and why they may be doing this. If you're casting Charles's first student, and if you have an idea what you want to do for Charles, you may want to have, all right, who's the actress you want? How do you want them to play off of Charles? What's going to be their dynamic? Because Charles is closest to Gene than he is to any other student, even Scott, because they have they have a they have telepathic connection as well. But I do want to ask about the the thing of this potential Sadie potentially showing up to Shamari before,
Mm-hmm.
like, Secret Wars. Like, she could show up as early as Doomsday potentially. Does that surprise you? That's, to me, maybe the thing that's getting lost in this that is super exciting. Like the fact that like maybe we're seeing like a new X-Men character in 2 years. Like, okay, like that gets me very excited.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's very good. I mean, I think that's great. Um, I definitely think Jean Grey showing up in something like that would be big. That'd be a sign that yes, the X Men are coming very, very soon. Buckle up, kind of stuff, which is good. So, I would say that I would say that I would have expected. I feel like us seeing Beast in what was it, the Marvels? I'm sorry, I was kind of like what was
Beast
that?
was in the Marvels.
Yeah, I think Beast showing up in the Marvels kind of opened the floodgates. At this point, I'm like, yeah, we should be seeing hopefully multiple X Men in Doomsday, and maybe another movie. I don't know, maybe something else. At this point, at this point, who knows? So yeah, I'm all in on us seeing more X Men and more content, and hopefully us getting an announcement at some point. When Marvel told me this, when Kendall told me this news, just about in general, I was like, in what movie? We don't even have an X Men movie announced. What is Jean Grey? What she was casted? What is she casted? Yeah, so we need a movie. So that's what I want. That's the next big thing for me is getting some kind of official movie announcement. And I don't really know. Maybe they're waiting for Doomsday to come out, but we need a movie announcement. So that's the next. Because especially if we're getting like X Men castings, like Jean Grey, Cyclops, and anybody else, I'm like, now I want to know what they're gonna like. What are they? What movie are they gonna be? So that's the big thing for me.
Kendall, how likely do you feel like it is we'll see a new X Men character in something as early as Doomsday?
Doomsday sounds like a mess. Like not the movie. I mean, the movie maybe, but like the idea of Jean Grey being in Doomsday does sound a little bit messy. Once Shamari brought back the whole Beast thing, I totally forgot about that. But like, we all assume that it's Kelsey Grammer, and what universe doesn't we have no idea. But maybe it's the one from Doctor Strange with Professor X, or maybe it's the original one, or maybe it's a Deadpool, Wolverine, Beast. I don't know. But then you're telling me there's a completely new Jean Grey, and I'm like, I guess Kelsey Grammer just playing Beast in every universe. Like he's,
Yeah, you saw my face. You saw my face, kind of when Beast showed up in the screen.
Oh, Shamari lost it.
I was like, what?
Shamari lost it. And it's funny because my reaction was going to be, like when you guys talked about like Jean Grey maybe being in this movie and maybe being like one of the only X-Men characters. My initial reaction was like, man, that's a weird choice to be the only mutant in the movie or the only X-Men character. But again, our first X-Men iteration, our first iteration of an X-Men character was Beast. Not counting Professor X and Wolverine. I mean, that was before Wolverine, but like they gave us Beast before they gave us a million other characters. So again, they're not opposed to doing that. But yeah, I mean, initially I was excited just because we're getting X-Men, right? And we're getting X-Men characters. Jean Grey being casted is a good development on all fronts, just because that means the wheels are in motion. Hearing that she might be in Doomsday, while on the flip side, if you would have told me that a year ago, I'd been like, awesome, great, new X-Men. No more old characters. It's not Famke Jensen. It's not no Halle Berry. No, we already got Jackman. That's too late. No James Marsden. Like, give us new people. But now I'm like, I don't know. They didn't give us any of them in Deadpool. They kind of got to give us a send off with those characters. Like, we know Jackman will probably be in this movies. Like, where are they? And where does this girl fall into the mix with that? Or are they not going to give those characters a send off, which would be very bizarre? Are we not going to get Patrick Stewart? I think there was a report or a rumor that we were going to get Patrick Stewart. We all expect that, but he's going to be like 85 years old. I think McAvoy and Fassbender should be Professor X and Magneto in this new universe. I mean, I've said that, and I'll always say that. I think that's a layup for them, but they're not going to do that. But but regardless, they should at least be in these movies, which is even more of a layup. But regardless, I'd wait till after Secret Wars, or like in Secret Wars, but like after whatever happens to reset the world. That's when I would introduce a new X-Men. Doing it before Secret Wars, I guess, is fine, but could be really messy in terms of a timeline. Unless it's a part of the multiverse stuff. But I don't think any of this X-Men stuff should be a part of the multiverse stuff until unless it's just the aftermath of everything.
I mean, it kind of makes sense. It's tempting, but I mean, at the same time, man, like we've been waiting way too long to get real X-Men characters involved with what's going on with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I feel like if they have the opportunity to put them in, I I'm gonna say F it. Just like give it to me and see what happens. The worst thing that happen is all right, maybe it doesn't work out for the multiverse saga that's ending. We still got saga coming after that. You can work out the kinks in your new X-Men movie, and there's really no I don't know if there's really much of a risk really in moving in that direction. I want to follow up with this real quick before we get out of here. So speaking about something really not Marvel related, well, not it is Marvel related, but kind of shifting gears a little bit. So, Kraven the Hunter, um, terrible start in the box office, critically completely panned. You talk about a box office opening worse or on par with Madam Web. Last time I saw, I think the Rotten Tomatoes score was at 15. This has not been a good opening for Kraven. I have not seen the movie. Um, I keep saying I will maybe see it, but I said that about Venom. I said that about Madam Web, and I haven't seen either of those movies. So take my word with who grain of salt. I do eventually do want to get to see Craven, but now we're seeing a lot of reports that one, Sony is kind of putting a little bit of a pause, so to speak, on. There's been some conflicting reporting, but the reporting initially was that Sony may be putting a pause on their non-Spider-Man solo Marvel movies involving these kind of like Spider-Man villains and side characters. So your Morbius's, your Venoms, obviously this movie Craven, Madam Webs, that they maybe put a pause on that. But then there's some bigger stuff. My Time to Shine, my Time to Shine. Hello says, according to Twitter, one of the big scoopers that used to get stuff out is that he's hearing that Sony is quote seriously considering selling the Spider-Man IP back to Marvel. So that would mean that this kind of joint deal that Disney and Sony have, where Sony does these one-off. I don't know, one-off. They have some sequels, but these other movies regarding other Spider-Man characters. But that Spider-Man starring Tom Holland is produced by Marvel in conjunction with Sony, so that Spider-Man can be included in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the overall MCU. If Sony sells back that IP, that would mean that Tom Holland and everything regarding Spider-Man would go fully under Marvel's umbrella, and Disney's umbrella would have nothing to do with Sony anymore. This is all very fascinating. Now, what we do know is there's a lot of noise happening because you're seeing this. We're seeing, well, they may do this, but they want to keep Spider-Man. We know that the tree has been shaken, that this Craven flop has been a absolute wake up call to Sony that they're going to do something different. This, to me, guys, feels very similar to what happened after Amazing Spider-Man 2 in the Sony leak. That's when the tree was shaken. We started hearing rumors, and all of a sudden, the deal was struck. I'm not here to say that it's going to happen immediately, but it does feel like there are people at Sony that are looking at the bottom line and saying, okay, maybe Venom is profitable, but with these other things, like, what the hell are we doing? Like, why are we still doing this? Sham, what do you think will end up being kind of how this all plays out? And how do you think Sony should play their hand right now, given the failures they've had making these non-Spider-Man Marvel movies?
Um, it's tough because, so first of all, I would definitely like everything movie and I think TV related regarding Spider-Man to go back to Marvel. I don't think there's no amount of confliction for me regarding that. I would like, even though Marvel's been dropping the ball lately in a lot of different ways, I still prefer their take, especially lately, on everything Sony related, everything Spider-Man related, except the Spider-Verse. That's the only thing that I'm like that I don't know. I hope that movie would still come out
Mm-hmm.
and be led by Lord and Miller and the team that's been working on that. I would hope that would just be untouched and just still be come out the way that's been, like, if there was some kind of sale to happen very soon. that would just be untouched. Marvel would be like, just continue doing whatever you're doing. But outside of that, everything else, I would just want to go to that to Kevin Feige and the Marvel team. I trust them more with the Spider-Man brand when it comes to movie and television. Everything else, when it comes to the video games, I've been loving these Spider-Man video games. They've been fantastic. They've been a part of the Sony Interactive Entertainment
Yeah.
team that has been working with Insomniac, and they you know, it's those games have been amazing. It's been the best Spider-Man stuff. It's like that, and Spider-Verse is like here and here. Like that's the best Spider-Man stuff that's come out. Regardless of whatever
Yep.
way that it's come out. So, in that sense, I still want that to be under Sony. I hope it would still be under Sony's, Sony's team. If Insomniac is still under their umbrella and so on. So, but in terms of movies, outside of the Spider-Verse, I would want Marvel to take that over. In terms of what Sony should do, I'm not sure. I think if they've been suffering losses in their recent movies, I would think. I know the movies are their big money makers. I mean, Spider-Man makes money for them in all kinds of different ways, as I just said. So I don't know. They'd have to look at all that, or maybe they can do like a. Part of me is like, can they just do it like a piecemeal? Can they just, okay, if you want the movies, if you want control of the movies, fine, we'll take control of this, that, and the other thing, like, or is it just an all or nothing?
Yeah. I mean,
so maybe they can work something like that out.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, there's nothing that can't be negotiated. You would feel like, right?
Yeah.
When billionaire corporations get in the room, they control the world. They can kind of do whatever they want.
Because they've been making a lot of money off of these. I know off of these games as well.
For sure.
So I don't know. I feel like that's something that they should definitely look at. But there are things that Sony has been in charge with regarding Spider-Man that they've been releasing that I've enjoyed, that I wouldn't want to go to somebody else. So I hope that this all gets worked out, and that the things that I like aren't affected by any kind of potential deal between Sony and Marvel.
Yeah, in some ways, I feel like in terms of like Spider-Man, like movies and video games have been great. The only medium that's still trying to catch up, I feel like, is actually the comic books. I think that's been probably the worst medium of all of this.
Right. Is Marvel? Yeah, and that's all Marvel, right? Sorry.
Yeah. Marvel Studios, of course, doing that. So I mean, not Marvel. Well, technically, Marvel Studios. They've kind of done a weird. Technically, fight overseas comics.
Right. It's all Disney.
Yeah, it's Disney. Right. It's all weird. Kendall, do you feel like this is the nail in the coffin for Sony? Is this dead, or are we never going to see these standalone movies again?
I don't necessarily think so. I think it's close. I think they're on life support from a business standpoint. But that's all this is. This is just business. They're looking at the bottom line and saying, is this still profitable for us? Can we, as a company, continue to make money off of this brand? And what I would tell them is Spider-Verse can. So again, they haven't sold yet. Like Shamari said, I think they're waiting on Spider-Verse to come out and be in development and continue to stay in production. And that'll be a movie that'll do well, hopefully. And so for them, beyond Spider-Verse, they have to then look at their portfolio and say, how do we continue to make money and stay, profitable? Because none of these spin-off movies will ever make money ever again. I don't know if they could ever be good. So like they have to come to the realization that those aren't money makers. There's rumors, reports that there have been rumors over the last couple of years that like the only reason they're making these movies because they have to make a new Spider-Man movie every year, and so that's why they come out with these spin-offs just to keep the contract valid and everything, to stay in good faith. But if they don't have to make those movies, they really shouldn't. But to me, their only pivot if they really were like hell bent on keeping the property, would be trying to get Maguire or Garfield back, either to do like their own set of movies again, or to at least do a tie-in Miles Morales live action movie under the Sony banner.
Something tells me they can't do that. 'Cause I don't know why they wouldn't do it already, Kendall.
And to me, I think the easy reason is I don't think those guys want to work with Sony. Like, I don't think Maguire. I'm sure Maguire and Garfield. Like, I'm sure they've got some good relationships with at Sony with Amy Pascal, Avi Arad, some of the people that have worked on all those movies. Obviously Sam Raimi and all the people that have worked on those movies, and Mark Webb. But I also think that those guys realize that those movies at a certain point hurt their career. You know, I mean, and kind of.
Yeah, I mean, Garfield was really screwed. I mean, they both were kind of screwed by Sony. But
By
Garfield
the end.
definitely was screwed by Sony.
And so, like, I don't think those guys have much love for Sony from a business standpoint and, like, are going to do anything to help Sony and work with Sony. I think those guys came back for No Way Home because of Kevin Feige. The same reason Hugh Jackman came back for Deadpool, because of Kevin Feige. And so, I don't think that why are those guys coming back if there's no Kevin Feige involved? That would be my question. And so if that's not possible, then yeah, I think they need to sell. Because after that, you could do a Miles Morales live action, but like I don't know what the draw is. I mean, they still technically own the Holland stuff, but that's Marvel produced at this point. Like you do it outside of Marvel, but that's what we've been talking about. Like, could you do Tom Holland, in a Venom movie? Like, we've already had those conversations. So once you put Tom Holland in a Miles Morales movie, it just becomes a Marvel adjacent thing. So, to me, and could you do Miles Morales without Peter Parker? Or there was a report that they may just cast a new Peter Parker. I saw that out there as well. I think that's terrible.
I saw that too.
I mean, you could try that.
That sounded like, I mean, somebody was smoking too much ganja, man. I'm like,
but that's why I say I don't think it's a done deal that these guys are definitely, because that sounds like somebody that's in my head that's doing what I'm doing right now, and it's like crisis management. We're on our last life,
this out.
And like, how do we think this out and go through every idea possible? And once you're going through it, you're just like, look, if we can't get Holland, can we just get a new guy to play Holland? Like, we're going to play Spider-Man. Like, why can't we get a new guy? And like you said, that sounds like a ridiculous idea that, for a million different reasons, doesn't make sense. But they just, from a money standpoint, they're just trying to make it work so they don't have to sell. Because they know once they sell, they're out of business. I don't know what Sony Pictures is without Spider-Man. I mean, we went to the Sony Pictures panel at Comic-Con. I know it's Comic-Con, but like, it was Karate Kid, and it was Venom, and it was crazy. I mean, come on. Like, and the Karate Kid thing finally came out this week. But like, there was some buzz around Karate Kid. That's a big brand, but that can't be the face of your movie studio
for sure.
So now they're in a situation where if we don't have Spider-Man, like, what do we have? I don't know what else Sony has. So like, that's what they've got to come to grips with. And it's like we always say, man, like, we got to understand a lot of people got jobs. Like Amy Pascal's like, I'm not relevant. If we sell Sony Spider-Man to Marvel or Disney, I'm not relevant anymore as a producer, so they're trying to hold on for dear life. It hasn't gotten quite to Fantastic Four / X-Men level with Fox. Fox got to a point.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at like
Fox couldn't make a Spider-Man movie. Fox couldn't make. I mean, that's why they couldn't make an X-Men movie, and they couldn't make a Fantastic Four movie anymore.
X-Men movie. They
had gotten to a point where nothing they were going to do was going to ever make money ever again. They ran out of options. They ran out of movies besides Deadpool. But like, Deadpool wasn't worth keeping all of those other assets. So like, they had to just let it go.
45 billion. What they get? 45 billion. Like,
I want to say it was it was something like that.
Was it? It was like
it was like 30-ish, or I thought it was maybe high 20s or low 30s, but it could have been more than that for all we know. But ridiculous number. And, this to me is more akin to the Disney Lucasfilm, in terms of how much obviously the valuation will be.
That was a $71 billion. That was a $71 billion.
Yeah, we both shorted it. Like, I think
they would have walked Deadpool. They would have Reynolds
Right.
right over to
Yeah,
the Burbank
Deadpool is not
Studios.
worth
Just, here you
71
go.
billion.
Here's Ryan Reynolds in costume and all.
And so this to me is like Star Wars. Like Lucasfilm, George Lucas got to a point where he just was like, I don't really want to make Star Wars movies anymore. I could probably reboot it and maybe make some money, but like, what's the point? And so he gave it up for $4 billion. Disney made that up in like 3 years.
They
And
recouped that too crazy.
since
fast.
then, you know, they've been making that money back. The question though for Marvel and Disney is Spider-Man worth $4 billion at this point? Like that number may seem like it's small because again, with Star Wars, they got that $4 billion back in like 4 or 5 years. It was easy. It took them like 5 movies, and they were, yep, we already hit $4 billion. Now everything else is gravy on that deal. But the difference is that was the introduction of Spider-Man. Of Star Wars, right? The reintroduction of Star Wars after 10 plus years of being gone. We've already had 3 Spider-Man movies, plus all these damn spin-offs every year that have been terrible. What is the value of Marvel owning the full Spider-Man umbrella worth $4 billion? And then $4 billion is a number I'm just throwing out there from the Star Wars number. It could be $1 billion, however much. But
It's
is
gonna
it
be
worth
more than that. I mean,
whatever the amount of money? You think it'd be more? Than
I don't. It's hard to. I mean, Star
Man,
Wars. They sold
a lot of money.
George Lucas. I mean, when was $4 billion? When was that? That was like what 2000?
Now it was like it was about 10-ish years ago. A little less.
Yeah,
than that,
you talk about inflation. I don't know. I feel like Spider-Man. Inflation tells me it's gonna be more than $4 billion. I'm not saying it's gonna be 50, but like I don't know, probably.
How long is it going to take them to make that money up? I guess is what I'm asking. I think it'll take them a little longer.
I don't think it'll take that long. I mean,
it's a little hard to quantify.
15, yeah. I have to know the number, right?
Yeah, it's a little hard to quantify because Spider-Man's going to be in so many different things.
Right, that's true too.
Now he's already in those
things.
Now he's already
Fantastic Four. Right.
They have the rights to use him in all these movies.
Things. That's fair.
You know, that's fair. So you can't. We're talking solely Spider-Man movies that they would own now.
Right.
And saying, you know, now you just everything you get. Like, how many Spider-Man movies is it going to take for them to make that $4 billion up? And like, I don't know if every Spider-Man movie for the next 4 of them are going to make $1 billion. You know. They could. The last one did, you know. But like that would be my question. If like this was if this was Civil War, and they were like acquiring Spider-Man for the first time, and we were talking Homecoming, I'd be like, yeah, they'll make that money up. Give them 5 years, they'll easily make that money up. I'm like,
Marvel already owns the merchandising and all that stuff.
They own all that stuff. The only thing they don't own is the movie
already.
Yeah, the movie is the only thing they
own. So the only thing is just the box office. That's it.
Well,
off of the movies.
Well, I'm saying they own like the Spider-Man brand outside of everything, outside of movies.
You're talking about marketing for the movie. Yeah,
right. Marketing for the Spider-Man movies. I think Sony would still own that technically. I would think.
I'm pretty sure that's we taltalked about this.
I think that's all Sony.
We've gotten all the stuff on that. I'm pretty sure that's all Sony. Right. Yeah, it's. I mean, the Spider-Man Sony Marvel stuff is so fascinating. At times it's been harrowing because there was that window when remember Holland had left the universe, which is insane. I personally feel like Kellen lays out some good points about why maybe Sony isn't completely out of moves. I think, like I said, I think they're kind of cooked. The only other move I see them more doing, because that whole making our own Spider-Man thing is one of the most idiotic things I've ever heard. That sounds like, again, some guy in overworked in some back office trying to just come up with something. I feel like the best route that they could do would be to just pull Holland like they did last time. Or just be like, all right, yo, we need Holland so to make these things work. So we're just pulling Spider-Man and we're gonna keep the money for ourselves. I don't think that would be smart. That's the going nuclear option.
Yeah, that's scorched earth. Like you're gonna lose so many fans.
Yeah. You'll still get pretty good box office numbers, and you'll probably make some decent revenue, but you'll piss off so many people,
and you'll piss off Holland.
And And I think there's a chance you also may make terrible movies, and then that also will hurt your box office and hurt your future. So like Marvel, we say whatever you want about Marvel in this new era, they've not made a bad Spider-Man movie ever.
No.
So that
Mm-hmm.
so you taking away Spider-Man and giving them to your crappy directors and your crappy story writers, and I say that from the live action, of course, not from the animation. They're amazing. If you're gonna do that, that seems like your only move, but it feels like a move that's literally cut off your nose despite your face. I don't think that really works out. I think they're out of moves. I think we'll see within the next year. I'm making a bold prediction December 19th. I'll say within the next year, before the end of 2025, we will hear that Spider-Man is going back to Disney in its full.
Okay.
I think that the video games will stay. And I think they'll let Beyond the Spider-Verse come out as is, kind of like what they did with Dark Phoenix, but like in a totally different different feels. You know, like it won't like
They'll
obviously
actually
like
sell
do
it.
whatever you're doing, yeah, like and then just whatever that happened, or with New Mutants, whatever. Like that's like it's gonna be like they're gonna promote it and everything, and like it'll be a lot better than how that was. But I think it's gonna be the exact same thing.
Do you
I
think Lord and Miller play a
I
role?
think they're setting us up for it. You thinking of?
Right. Do you think Lord and Miller play a role in the MCU?
Probably. I would be smart. To me, it would be smart. They're great. They're great filmmakers. It would be smart to bring them in the fold. Now, I mean, we've been to panels with Lord and Miller for Spider Verse at Comic Con. We've heard Lord and Miller comments. It feels like the appeal of what they've done. Now, you never know if this is just them sending the shots because you're at the other company, so you send shots. We know that everything's pro wrestling, right? So you're always working the gimmick. You don't know if it's them, just saying stuff just to kind of maybe just prop up Sony. But it feels like the appeal they've had of working with Sony has been that it's not like what people say Marvel is like, where it's just everything has got to be through Kevin Feige and under his idea and his vision.
I mean, look, those guys.
That seems to be an appeal for anybody not working in Marvel. You're working for Disney, or you're working for DC, or you're working with Sony. It feels like that's what you keep hearing. So
me and Shamari
I don't know.
With,
maybe that'd be an
Star
issue,
Wars,
but I would say is Kevin Feige
guys
needs to
were
like
working on
needs to give
Solo,
some power.
Until they weren't, and until Kathleen Kennedy came in and was like, this movie isn't not coming the way we want, and there was a lot of issues, and then all of a sudden Ron Howard was making the movie. So like maybe they don't want oversight.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah, they have very, very bad history with people coming in and messing with their movies, and then the next thing you know, they're out the door. So
you're right.
That's good. That's interesting. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. So no, that's gonna be. I think that's gonna be. That's why I think next year's gonna be great too. Because now you add this to the mix. I think that we're gonna see kind of maybe a little bit of a massive resurgence regarding conversations about superhero movies. I think we're seeing a shift coming in a major way.
If Marvel could get a fully fledged world with everything under their umbrella, I mean, the reason this does make sense for Marvel is like they're about to hit the reset button anyway, allegedly. We know it's going to happen after Secret Wars. And so if you can do that and have a Spider-Man where you could actually acknowledge Venom and, Norman Osborn, that's not Willem Dafoe. And I guess some of these things they could have done anyway, but they didn't want to do. But Kraven, some of these characters you couldn't use, like on top of the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, like all these other things we're gonna get. I mean, that is like the dream. I mean, we haven't had a movie. We've had movies where Captain America is interacting with Spider-Man, but like, what about Captain America in the same world as Norman Osborn? Norman Osborn sharing screen time with Tony Stark. Like, who's playing Tony Stark? I don't know, but like that is what they could use to sell the next version of Marvel when they reset it. It's not necessarily we've seen Tony Stark already. Yeah, we've seen Captain America, Steve Rogers, but have you seen those characters with the X-Men? Have you seen those characters?
Well, like I said, what about like Morbius interacting with Blade? Like, there's so many possibilities that you can do if you make this thing happen. That is very
Miles Morales,
very intriguing.
man, in live action.
Miles Morales,
that's another
Marvel
character that could come into play and You know, you want to talk about, I'm talking about, look, Cyclops could be the next Tom Holland. I think it's a mistake, but Miles Morales would be great. I mean, like that's a character, whoever you cast, Renzi Feliz is getting old. I think he'd be great, but he's getting old to play that character. Whoever you cast to play Miles Morales, who should be 22 years old, like that is, that's somebody that, could be a big time guy as one of your younger heroes. Like, when you factor all these different things, that's how you say to yourself, like you guys have mentioned, that's when you get to that $4 billion pretty quick, or however much it's going to be. Maybe it'll be more, but again, that's where if I'm Marvel, like Disney, we're laying people off at ESPN every week, So I'm like, do we have $4 billion to just be giving out? I mean, I know we just paid all this money for inside the NBA, and all this other stuff, but like, we don't have all this money to be just giving, Sony, for Marvel or for Spider-Man.
Look, man, it's Disney. It's a corporation. They could always find the money. That's what I always say.
Yeah, they got the money.
But that's a good place to leave it, guys. That's going to do it for this edition of New Generation Hero Talk. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. Of course, if you enjoyed this show, you can catch all of our shows on New Generation Podcast Network. You can find them on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and TuneIn. Also, be sure to check us out on YouTube, New Generation Media. Follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, New Generation Pod, Instagram, New Generation Podcast, as well as Facebook, New Generation Media. And follow us individually on social media. Kendall's on Twitter, New Gen Ken. Shamari's on Instagram and Snapchat, MCSham22. And you can find me on Twitter, EJ_Stewart, Instagram, and TikTok, EJ. That'll do it for now. Thank you so much for checking us out. For Kendall, for Shamari, I'm EJ. Take it easy, guys. Peace.